Understood. Here's section 1 written as a continuous narrative no headings, no breaks, no asterisks, entirely focused on building the story's foundation. It runs close to 1,600 words, crafted to introduce the arena, the alien generals, Earth's humiliation, and the sudden entrance of the samurai. The Colosseum was older than Earth's first cities, carved from the bones of an asteroid and held together by alien technology that glowed with an inner fire. Tier upon tier of black stone seats curved around a central arena, filled with 100 different species of conquerors, mercenaries, and generals who had come to witness Earth's humiliation. Above them hung banners of alien empires, each stitched with glyphs of dominance. They swayed in the artificial wind like the flags of forgotten gods. At the heart of it all, where the dust of 100 duels stained the cracked tiles, a lone human soldier stumbled backward. He was an Earth pilot, chosen to represent humanity after much debate, clad in the standard fatigues of the Planetary Defense Corps. His helmet was gone, smashed to pieces. His breathing was ragged, shallow, a desperate rasp that echoed in the silence between jeers. Across from him loomed his opponent, a brute of a creature standing twice his height, skin armored in dark scales, tusks curving like scythes from its jaw. The alien swung a weapon the size of a door, part hammer, part cleaver, its edge still wet with the blood of previous challengers. The soldier tried to steady himself. His rifle had been shattered at the beginning of the fight, the pieces scattered across the tiles. His only weapon now was a jagged shard of metal he had torn from the wreckage. He raised it with trembling hands, a defiance born less of courage than of instinct. The alien general overseeing the bout leaned forward, his mandibles clicking in amusement. "Earth sends insects," the general declared, his voice magnified through the arena's resonant systems. His words rippled like a curse, translated instantly into 100 tongues. "Fragile flesh, brittle bone, no strength, no spirit. Is this your warrior, Earth?" A roar of laughter followed from the stands. Rows of reptilian throats croaked their delight. Insectoid limbs clattered against the railings. Even the cold-eyed machine envoys emitted harsh tones of mockery. The soldier gritted his teeth, lunged forward with a final cry, and was swatted aside like dust. His body slammed against the arena wall with a sickening crunch. He did not rise again. The silence that followed was not reverence but boredom. His death had offered no challenge, no spectacle, nothing worth remembering. The alien brute raised its weapon, bellowed its victory, and the crowd responded half-heartedly. The generals in the viewing balcony exchanged smirks, and Earth's delegation lowered their eyes. Among them, diplomats in dark suits shifted uncomfortably, shame written across their faces. They had hoped the pilot would last longer, at least enough to show defiance. Instead, he had become a symbol of weakness. The alien general who had spoken first, a hulking warlord from the Drakshar Dominion, stood. His armor was crusted with trophies, bones woven into its plates. He spread his arms in exaggerated mockery. "This is your Earth. A world of talkers and dreamers, but no warriors. You are not a species worthy of respect. You are prey." The words cut deeper than any blade. One of Earth's younger delegates opened his mouth to protest, but his superior laid a firm hand on his arm. They had no power here. This was the arena of empires that had ruled stars before humanity even learned to shape fire. To speak now was to invite further derision. The warlord gestured to the arena floor. "Does no other human dare step forward? Or is your world so empty of courage that you bring lambs to slaughter?" Another wave of laughter surged through the crowd, sharper this time, crueler. It was the sound of predators mocking their prey before the kill. The diplomats shifted again, glancing toward one another, but no answer came. The humiliation deepened. And then, a figure moved. From the shadows near the Earth delegation, a man stepped forward. He did not wear the black suits of the diplomats nor the fatigues of the fallen soldier. His attire seemed impossibly archaic in this place of steel and alien banners, layered plates of dark armor bound by silk cords, a hakama that brushed against his sandals, and at his side a long, curved blade sheathed in a simple scabbard. His hair was streaked with gray, bound tightly behind his head, and his face was marked with scars that spoke of wars long past. Yet his eyes were steady, calm, untouched by the storm of laughter above him. The crowd quieted for a moment, unsure whether to laugh or to wait. Even the alien generals regarded him with a flicker of curiosity. The warlord tilted his head, tusks glinting under the arena light. "And what is this relic?" the warlord asked. "Another human? Dressed for a costume play? Do you think your little metal stick will cut through the hide of a champion?" The man walked without hesitation, descending the stone steps until his sandals touched the dust of the arena floor. He stopped beside the fallen soldier, knelt briefly, and closed the man's eyes with 2 fingers. Then he rose again, his hand resting lightly on the hilt of his sword, but he did not yet draw it. He raised his chin toward the balcony. His voice carried without effort, steady as stone. "I am Takeda Arinobu, son of warriors, student of Bushido, servant of earth. I will stand." The laughter returned, louder now, swelling through the tears. The alien generals leaned back in amusement. The warlord barked a booming laugh. "You! With no armor, no rifle, no augmentation? You carry only a blade of dead metal? Do you not fear to die?" Takeda inclined his head slightly, a bow of courtesy more than submission. "Death is certain for all. It is how one meets it that matters." Some in the crowd fell silent at the calmness of the words, though most continued to jeer. The warlord grinned, baring his fangs. "Then meet it quickly." He gestured toward the brute still standing in the arena. "Kill him, and let us move on." The creature snorted, raising its cleaver again. It advanced in heavy steps, each one shaking the tiles, eyes burning with cruel anticipation. The crowd leaned forward, eager to watch the human be crushed. Takeda did not move. His hand rested on his sword, thumb pressing against the guard, blade still sheathed. His breathing was steady, slow, unbroken. He studied the creature with the gaze of one measuring not an opponent but a storm, observing its rhythm, its pattern, its weight. The brute roared and charged, cleaver descending like a falling tower. Dust rose from the impact. The sound cracked through the Colosseum like thunder. When it cleared, Takeda was still standing. The blade remained sheathed. The strike had cut only stone. He had stepped aside at the last instant, smooth as a drifting leaf. The crowd gasped. Takeda's eyes narrowed, his stance shifting subtly. His thumb pressed harder against the guard of his sword, ready but restrained. The brute snarled, lifted its weapon again, and the duel truly began. The generals leaned forward. The jeers faltered, replaced by murmurs. Something in the arena had changed. Takeda stood alone, yet he did not waver. The dust swirled around him, the banners rustled high above, and the weight of every gaze pressed down upon him. He welcomed it. This was no stage for humiliation. This was a place of judgment, and he had come to deliver it. The brute circled him with the sluggish confidence of a predator that had never known defeat. Its tusks jutted forward like curved spears, each breath snorting steam into the air. The cleaver rose again, a slab of metal so massive it carried its own gravity, then swept across the arena in a wide arc meant to crush anything in its path. Dust and shards of stone flew, yet the man in armor of another age was no longer where the strike had landed. He moved with the smallest of pivots, sandals whispering across the tiles, body gliding just out of reach. The crowd gasped, a ripple of disbelief spreading across the tiers. The alien generals leaned forward, narrowing their eyes. To them the weaponless human was little more than spectacle, yet already something about his movements was unsettling. He carried no fear, only an uncanny calm that seemed to slow the violence around him. The brute roared, stung by mockery it could not name, and charged once more. Its bulk thundered forward, cleaver swinging down in a killing stroke. The sword at Takeda's side whispered free from its scabbard, steel flashing like a sliver of moonlight. A single step, a single breath, and the blade found the space beneath the beast's arm. Blood fountained into the dust, the massive body shuddered, then collapsed to its knees before crumpling lifelessly. Silence crushed the arena. Even the banners overhead stilled as though pausing for respect. The alien generals exchanged glances, their sneers briefly broken. Then came the roar, not of admiration but of outrage. The warlord who had mocked Earth slammed his clawed fist against the railing, mandibles grinding. "Trickery! The human used a coward's strike. The beast was unprepared. His accusation spread like a signal, and the crowd erupted in hissing, screeching, and mechanical clangor. Yet none could deny what they had seen. The alien brute was dead, cut down by a man with nothing but a sword and an unshaken will. Takeda lowered his blade, wiped it once against his sleeve, and returned it to its scabbard with a deliberate calmness. He bowed toward the fallen creature, an act of respect in a place that had never known such gestures. His voice carried upward without strain. Strength without discipline is only violence. It is not warriorship. The words unsettled the spectators. The alien generals sneered, unwilling to let silence linger. Another of them, smaller in stature but more cunning, leaned toward the warlord. "Send more. Crush him quickly. Make this insect bleed until there is nothing left to admire." The warlord raised his hand, and gates opened on the far side of the arena. From the darkness, 3 figures emerged, gladiators bred for slaughter, each representing a different empire. One bore arms that split into serrated blades, another's body shimmered with scales that deflected plasma, and the last carried a hooked spear taller than a man. They fanned out in a practiced formation, their eyes fixed on the human standing motionless at the center. Takeda adjusted his stance, shoulders loosening, eyes scanning each of them in turn. He neither smiled nor frowned, offering no emotion to the crowd. The 3 circled him, cautious now, measuring him as he had measured the first brute. Dust swirled at their feet, catching the light of alien torches that burned with unnatural hues. For a heartbeat, the arena was hushed, every watcher leaning forward in anticipation. The first struck with a screech, leaping with blades outstretched. The sound of steel meeting steel rang out, Takeda's sword already free, his motion clean and exact. The strike that should have gutted him was redirected by the smallest shift of his wrist. In the same instant, his blade found the soft joint beneath the alien's shoulder, severing sinew and tendon. The creature fell screaming. The second lunged with the spear, thrusting with enough force to skewer 3 men in a line. Takeda turned with the motion, stepping past the tip, and drew the weapon closer as though inviting it. His sword sliced along the shaft, splitting it in 2, and before the wielder could recover the steel flashed upward, cutting a line across the creature's throat. The alien dropped, clutching at the wound, breath bubbling red. The third fighter, shimmering in scaled armor, hesitated. Its advantage was defense, its hide reflecting energy fire and blades alike. It roared, spreading its arms wide, taunting the human to try. Takeda watched it carefully, breathing deep, then shifted his grip. Instead of striking directly, he cut the tiles at his feet, kicking dust upward into the creature's eyes. The alien recoiled, blinded for the briefest moment. In that heartbeat the sword found the joint behind its knee, then its throat. The body collapsed with a crash of scales against stone. The crowd erupted, this time not in laughter but in a storm of conflicting voices. Some shouted rage, others disbelief, a few even cheered despite themselves. The alien generals hissed their frustration. The warlord leaned over the railing, eyes burning with fury. "Enough games. This one wants to play warrior? Then let him face a true warrior." The ground shook as another gate opened. A figure stepped out, not a brute bred for slaughter nor a gladiator borrowed from lesser species, but a decorated general of the Drakshar Dominion itself. Armor plated with living bone wrapped his massive frame, each piece etched with runes of conquest. His gauntlets gleamed with embedded energy cores, capable of shattering steel with a touch. A weapon hung at his side, a halberd forged from star metal that had tasted the blood of countless enemies. The crowd fell into hushed awe at his appearance. Takeda raised his eyes to the new opponent and inclined his head once in recognition. His expression did not change, though his hand rested more firmly on his sword's hilt. He knew this was no ordinary duel. This was not spectacle. It was judgment. The Drakshar general's voice boomed across the Colosseum. "You speak of discipline and honor as though they have weight. But honor does not win wars. Power does. Power that crushes, power that dominates, power that leaves no enemy to rise again." He planted the halberd into the stone with a crack that split the arena floor. "I will show you the truth of power." Takeda answered softly, yet his words carried to every ear. Power without honor is already defeat. The tension in the Colosseum was a living thing now, pressing down on every throat. Even the alien generals, smug in their dominance, could not disguise the unease prickling their spines. They had come to watch a human die for their amusement. Instead they found themselves watching a clash that might redefine the meaning of battle. The Drakshar general lifted his halberd, the blade humming with stored energy, and stepped into the arena dust. Takeda steadied his breathing, the rhythm of his heart slowing, his spirit narrowing to a single point. For a moment the ancient man and the alien warrior regarded one another in silence, two worlds embodied in their stances. The crowd held its breath. The halberd rose. The katana gleamed. The duel was about to begin. This completes section 2 **, written in a focused, continuous narrative, / 1600 words pacing. It advances the conflict by showcasing Takeda's skill against multiple opponents, introduces his philosophy against brute alien strength, and sets the stage for the true central conflict with the alien general. The Drakshar general advanced with the measured confidence of a predator that had never known fear. Each step pressed fissures into the tiles beneath his armored weight, the halberd humming with latent power as he dragged its edge across the floor in a line of sparks. His eyes, black and depthless, locked onto the solitary man who stood without shield or armor, holding nothing but a blade slender enough to look fragile in the vastness of the arena. The crowd leaned forward, tens of thousands of alien eyes burning with anticipation, and the silence was so complete that even the hiss of torches could be heard. Takeda's posture was neither rigid nor lax. His body rested in balance, hands steady, expression unreadable. He had fought beasts and gladiators, but this was different. The figure before him was no brute. This was a commander, a mind that had ruled over legions, a warrior whose victories had been carved into history. Takeda studied him as he would study a storm, searching not for size or noise but for the rhythm that lay beneath, the flaw hidden in inevitability. The general raised his halberd, its twin blades pulsing with light, and spoke for all to hear. You carry yourself as though the universe bends to your calm. But calm will not shield you. Philosophy cannot parry steel. The weak wrap themselves in ideals, but ideals will not keep their bones from breaking. When you fall, it will be as all humans fall, soft, pitiful, forgettable. Takeda's eyes did not waver. His reply was quiet, yet every syllable reached the highest tier of the Colosseum. To live without honor is already death. You have won many battles, but if your victories are built on nothing but destruction, then you have never truly lived. The general snarled, and the duel began. The halberd swept forward in a blinding arc, faster than a weapon of such size should move. Takeda moved with a dancer's precision, stepping inside the strike so close the weapon's energy hiss singed the edge of his armor. His blade whispered out of its sheath, cutting for the gap between plates, but the general twisted, the strike glancing harmlessly off bone-forged armor. The halberd reversed instantly, crashing down like a hammer. Takeda rolled clear, dust scattering, and rose in the same motion with his sword poised. The clash of styles was stark. The general fought like a mountain collapsing, each strike overwhelming, his sheer strength forcing the arena to tremble. Takeda answered with stillness and breath, his movements so minimal they seemed to vanish between blinks. Where the halberd carved the ground apart, his sword traced lines too fine to see, each aimed at weakness, never wasted. The crowd roared, no longer mocking but enthralled, for they understood now they were not watching an execution but a contest that balanced on a blade's edge. The general pressed forward relentlessly, blows falling like meteors. Takeda parried only when no other choice remained, steel ringing as sparks burst between weapons. Every strike sent shock through his arms, and though he absorbed the force with disciplined control, he felt the weight accumulating. He bled already from a shallow cut along his shoulder, earned when he had been a fraction too slow. The wound did not slow him, but it reminded him that one mistake, one miscalculation, would end everything. The alien snarled again, driving his halberd in a thrust that cracked the arena wall when Takeda sidestepped. Stone rained down, the dust clouding, and for an instant the general lost sight of him. The samurai used the moment, sliding in low, blade cutting for the gap beneath the general's arm. The strike connected, slicing through muscle. Black ichor splattered across the tiles. The crowd gasped as the general staggered for the first time in centuries of duels. Yet he did not fall. He twisted, backhanding Takeda with a gauntlet that sent the man crashing into the ground. The air left his lungs in a harsh gasp, blood flecking his lips. He rolled aside just as the halberd slammed down, stone exploding where his chest had been a heartbeat earlier. The general's voice thundered above him, not with fear but with fury. "You think yourself equal? You are an insect that has bitten a lion." Takeda rose again, slower this time, blood dripping from his mouth, but his eyes were steady. He wiped his blade across his sleeve, the gesture ritual as much as practical, and returned to stance. Even lions can fall to steel when pride blinds them. The words enraged the general further. He struck with a whirlwind of blows, faster now, driven by anger. Each swing shook the foundations of the Colosseum, scattering dust across the stands. Takeda yielded ground step by step, his blade a flicker of light deflecting the storm. His lungs burned, his muscles screamed, yet he forced his body to obey the rhythm he had learned in years of discipline. Breathe. Step. Watch. Wait. The storm would tire, the mountain would shift. He only had to endure long enough to see the fracture. Then came the opening. The general, certain of overwhelming him, struck with both hands in a downward cleave meant to split him in half. The blow shattered the tiles, leaving the halberd momentarily embedded. In that instant Takeda stepped in, his blade rising in a flawless arc. The katana cut along the gap of armor from hip to shoulder, slicing through the living bone. The general roared, staggering back, ichor pouring down his body. The arena thundered with cries, some in awe, others in fury. But the fight was not yet over. The general tore his weapon free, staggering but still alive, still burning with the will to kill. He swung again, less precise now but no less deadly. Takeda felt his legs weaken, the weight of blood loss pulling at him, yet his resolve did not falter. He steadied himself, sword raised, heart calm. He thought briefly of his grandfather's voice, teaching him as a boy in a quiet courtyard long before Earth had been dragged into the wars of stars: hold the sword as you hold your breath. Do not fight the river. Become the river. The halberd came in one final sweep, the energy along its edge shrieking with lethal force. Takeda exhaled. His body turned with the strike, his sword flashing in a perfect motion that cut through noise, dust, and fury. The blade slid into the general's exposed throat, passing through flesh and sinew in silence. For a heartbeat, the world froze. Then the Drakshar general collapsed, weapon falling from nerveless hands, ichor soaking the tiles. The crowd erupted, half in outrage, half in astonished cries. Never in memory had one of their champions fallen to a human. Never had weakness become victory. Takeda withdrew his blade, bowed once toward the fallen, and sheathed it with finality. Blood streaked his arm, his face, his side, yet he stood unshaken. His chest rose and fell with steady breaths, his eyes calm as though the duel had ended not in chaos but in silence. The arena was no longer filled with jeers. It was filled with uncertainty. The alien generals whispered among themselves, voices harsh, some furious, some oddly subdued. One, a reptilian overlord with eyes like molten gold, rose and inclined his head slightly. His words carried through the Colosseum. "This human is a warrior." The declaration hung heavy in the air, impossible to retract. Others hissed in disagreement, unwilling to grant respect to a species they considered beneath notice. Yet the image of the fallen general bleeding on the tiles could not be erased. Takeda had not merely survived. He had triumphed. He stood alone in the dust, sword sheathed, body trembling but spirit unbroken. Around him the Colosseum seethed with voices, but he heard only the quiet inside himself. His words echoed within, the ones he had spoken before the duel. Power without honor is already defeat. He had proven it, not with speeches, not with boasts, but with blood and steel. The crowd still roared, but now it was no longer laughter. It was a sound of reckoning. And though Takeda felt the weight of his wounds pulling at him, though his vision blurred at the edges, he did not fall. He remained standing in the center of the arena, a lone man before empires, awaiting what would come next. This is section 3 kept tightly within /1600 words pacing. It delivers the full duel between Takeda and the alien general, escalating tension through each exchange, and ends with the general's death and the arena forced into silence and re-evaluation. The body of the Drakshar general lay sprawled across the shattered tiles, his blood spreading in black rivers that seeped into the cracks of the arena floor. The halberd that had ruled over 100 battlefields lay silent beside him, its glow extinguished as if the weapon itself understood its master had fallen. Above, the stands that had mocked humanity hours before now murmured with disbelief. No voice dared to laugh. No one dared to dismiss. The silence that followed his death felt heavier than the roars that had preceded it, as if the entire Colosseum strained to comprehend the reality they had just witnessed. Takeda Arinobu remained upright in the center of the dust, his hand steady on the hilt of his sword though it remained sheathed. His body trembled from blood loss, his breath shallow, but he refused to collapse. For him, standing was not pride. It was duty. A warrior's body fell only when the soul chose to release it. His gaze traveled over the tiers of alien faces, meeting their eyes one by one, and he found no jeers now. He saw unease, calculation, respect hidden behind denial. They had seen him cut down a monster. They had seen him stand against a champion. They had seen something they could not name but could not deny. The Drakshar warlord who had orchestrated Earth's humiliation rose to his feet, mandibles grinding, eyes burning with hatred. He spread his arms wide to address the gathering. This means nothing. A single duel proves nothing. Humanity is still weak, still unworthy of the stars. Do not be fooled by this trickster's blade. His voice cracked across the arena, but the words lacked conviction. Even those who shared his contempt shifted uneasily, unwilling to echo his mockery too loudly. The sight of their general's corpse weighed heavier than pride. Takeda lifted his voice, quiet but clear, and it cut through the warlord's fury like steel through cloth. It proves that Earth will not kneel. It proves that even one man with resolve can defy the strength of empires. You laugh at our weakness, yet you bleed by our hands. Do you still think us prey? The warlord roared, his claws tearing gouges into the railing, but his answer drowned in the rising tide of voices. Some shouted in anger, others in reluctant admiration. A faction of generals from lesser empires murmured openly to one another, recognizing that humanity could no longer be dismissed outright. They did not cheer, but they acknowledged. In the world of conquerors, acknowledgement was more dangerous than applause. Takeda's body screamed for rest, but he forced himself to walk forward across the blood-stained tiles, every step deliberate. He stopped before the fallen general, bowed deeply, then straightened once more. I fought him because you demanded spectacle. I honored him because he gave his life for what he believed. That is what separates us. We do not kill for amusement. We fight because honor demands it. We endure because spirit demands it. You have asked what humanity offers the stars. I am your answer. The words spread through the arena with a force greater than any weapon. He had not boasted of victory, he had not begged for recognition. He had declared humanity's essence in a single truth: spirit above strength, honor above conquest. It was a philosophy alien to many of those present, but it was undeniable in the wake of what they had witnessed. The stillness in the air was charged, as though history itself leaned forward to record this moment. One of the machine envoys broke the silence, its voice a monotone hum. Data suggests human potential underestimated. Evidence contradicts assumptions. Revision required. The declaration, stripped of emotion, carried immense weight. A ripple of agitation passed through the stands. For a machine collective that had once dismissed humanity as statistically irrelevant, to acknowledge error was more profound than any cheer. The warlord saw power slipping from his grasp. His mandibles clacked furiously as he pointed toward Takeda. He cannot speak for all of Earth. He is but one man, one insect wielding a toy blade. Crush him now, before his poison spreads into policy. He raised his arm to summon another champion, but none came. The gates remained closed. No gladiators stepped forward. The other generals, even those who despised what they had seen, had no interest in sending another warrior into the dust. They had witnessed honor meet power and triumph. To continue the charade would invite further humiliation. Takeda stood alone yet unbowed. He looked toward Earth's delegation, men who had moments before shrunk in shame, and he saw them now with their shoulders straighter, their eyes burning with something long absent, pride. He gave them the smallest of nods, and in that gesture carried every sacrifice humanity had made to reach this stage, every struggle endured under the shadow of stronger worlds. He had given them back their dignity. The crowd shifted again, the voices clashing, but through the noise Takeda felt a strange quiet settle within him. His body throbbed with pain, yet his spirit remained calm. He thought of his grandfather's lessons, the simple words passed in a garden long ago: a sword is not for killing. It is for truth. Use it so, or do not lift it at all. Tonight his blade had spoken truth before empires, and that truth could not be silenced. The warlord's fury faltered as he realized he had lost not simply a duel but the narrative of power. Around him, generals whispered, some already considering how alliances with Earth might serve their empires, others pondering how a species once deemed fragile could hold such fire within. The warlord's claws dug deeper into stone, but he remained seated. Even he understood that to rise again now would be to admit desperation. Takeda turned once more to the arena, spreading his arms not in boast but in declaration. Earth is not strong by your measures. We have no fleets to rival yours, no weapons to shatter worlds. What we have is will. We endure storms, we rise from ashes, we fight even when hope is lost. You can mock us, you can test us, but you cannot break us. Today is proof. Tomorrow will be more. The statement struck with the weight of prophecy. The crowd erupted again, but now the sound was no longer unified. Some screamed for his death, others for recognition. The arena had become divided, and in that division, humanity had carved a place where none had existed before. Takeda bowed once more, then turned and began the long walk toward the shadows from which he had first emerged. Each step left a print in the dust, and every print felt carved into history itself. He carried no trophy, no prize, no outward sign of victory. He carried only his sword and his silence, yet it was more than enough. Behind him, the roar of the Colosseum continued, but it no longer mattered. His task was complete. At the edge of the arena, his knees threatened to buckle. He forced them straight, refusing to collapse until he was beyond the sight of alien eyes. Only when the shadows closed around him did he allow himself a single moment of weakness, pressing a hand to his side where blood seeped steadily. He leaned against the cold stone, closing his eyes briefly. He had lived. Earth had lived through him. That was enough.